They won't always emphasize this, but preparedness matters. Research shows most households lack adequate emergency supplies for extended power outages. Not because people are careless, but because modern life creates dependencies. Communication devices, refrigeration, fuel pumps, banking systems, they all rely on consistent power. And when infrastructure fails, your preparations become increasingly valuable. I'm Marcus. I've weathered multiple significant storms, several regional blackouts, and one mandatory evacuation. And here's what experience taught me. Your greatest challenge isn't the initial chaos, it's the human factor. Unprepared individuals facing uncertainty and scarcity. And they're not just seeking sustenance, they're targeting the exact resources you considered secure. This reflects documented patterns. During major disasters, equipment theft increases substantially within the first week. In past urban blackouts, opportunistic behavior began remarkably quickly. When infrastructure fails, social dynamics shift dramatically. So in this presentation, I'm covering 8 supply categories that become high demand during extended emergencies. More importantly, I'll share practical protection strategies based on documented crisis scenarios. Let's begin with number 8, because if you're assuming it's something predictable, you're missing critical insights. Batteries and portable power solutions. Let's discuss something most households completely overlook until they're surrounded by darkness and their flashlight suddenly dims. Batteries. I'm not referring only to standard sizes here. I mean lithium-ion power banks, rechargeable lanterns, tool batteries, and those solar-capable lighting systems. In extended outage scenarios, these energy storage devices become extremely valuable because without power, every task becomes more challenging. During major winter storms, portable battery prices can multiply rapidly within days. Why? Because standard charging becomes impossible. Devices die, communication ceases, lighting fails completely. I've heard accounts of people trading expensive power banks for heating fuel. And honestly, both parties considered it worthwhile. But here's what many don't realize. In various metropolitan areas, major retailers experienced runs not primarily on food, but on batteries. Shelves cleared within hours. And once information spread about homes with solar equipment, intrusions increased. Darkened homes attracted less attention, but illuminate something with battery power, suddenly you're advertising resources. The key to protecting these assets involves strategic placement. You want some visible batteries, lower value, older units that can be surrendered if necessary, but your primary storage needs obscure locations. I keep mine sealed in waterproof containers tucked behind mechanical equipment, in nondescript toolboxes, and even inside modified book compartments. Also, label them misleadingly. Defective cables, discarded. Keeps most searchers moving. And whatever you do, don't charge everything simultaneously. Multiple indicator lights at night essentially broadcast your preparedness level. Sanitation supplies and hygiene products. Here's the reality nobody discusses until it's already unavailable. Sanitation. When power fails, plumbing systems often fail shortly after. Municipal water pressure drops, wastewater infrastructure backs up, and suddenly basic hygiene becomes a significant challenge. In regions experiencing prolonged crises, basic hygiene products became extremely scarce commodities. I'm being completely serious. People were improvising solutions because new supplies weren't available. Following major hurricanes, health agencies reported substantial increases in illness within weeks because people couldn't maintain proper sanitation or hand hygiene. And this is where your supplies become attractive. Sanitizing wipes, disinfectant, protective gloves, hand sanitizer, even basic cleaning agents. All critical, all quickly depleted, and all items people will seek when desperation increases. You think someone's prioritizing power equipment before basic hygiene supplies? Reconsider. When disease risks escalate, priorities realign immediately. So how do you protect these seemingly mundane but essential items? First, never store everything in your bathroom. That's where people search first. I distribute mine across multiple storage areas, under kitchen sinks with false backs, even inside containers labeled with uninteresting contents like seasonal decorations, old candles. Second, decoy supplies matter. Leave visible stashes of partially used items and expired products. Let searchers think they've succeeded and move along.
And third, consider trade management. Keep some supplies for potential barter, but don't reveal your full inventory. Because once information spreads you have sanitizing wipes, you'll become everyone's preferred neighbor until you decline a request, and then you're marked. Clothing and cold weather gear. It might sound peculiar initially. Why would anyone target clothing during blackouts? But consider this carefully. When power's gone, there's no heating, no way to dry wet garments, no washing machines, no hot water. And suddenly, wool socks or a waterproof jacket becomes more valuable than expensive electronics. When regions lost power for weeks during extreme winter conditions, survival rates correlated directly with access to proper insulation. Think gloves, insulated boots, thermal underwear. Now consider your emergency closet. What have you stored? Durable gear, quality boots, insulated jackets. Those are valuable targets during extended cold weather outages. And here's what people overlook. Those who enter homes during disasters, especially during cold periods, aren't just seeking food, they're seeking warmth. I've heard from someone who experienced a major South American blackout. He reported people entering homes not for electronics, but for blankets. Just absorb that reality. So how do you protect these items? First, stop placing your quality gear in accessible closets. It needs secured containers, preferably labeled with mundane descriptions like old financial records or pet care items. Second, hide strategically. Store wool socks inside old food containers. Keep emergency sleeping bags under beds and old appliance boxes. And remember, visibility creates risk. A drying rack displaying perfectly maintained, expensive tactical clothing essentially advertises preparedness. Rotate visible items regularly and always make your gear appear well used. Faded, slightly worn, unremarkable, because in crisis situations, clean and pristine equals resources, and visible resources attract attention. Seeds and growing supplies. Now we're entering territory that only experienced, preparedness-minded individuals understand fully. Seeds. I'm not discussing recreational gardening. I'm discussing food production capability. In long-term infrastructure failures, seeds become strategic resources. During historical economic hardships, seed catalogs were treated as valuable resources. In regions experiencing prolonged scarcity post-2015, urban agriculture expanded dramatically because people realized food distribution systems weren't reliable anymore. Who benefited? Those with heirloom seeds. And here's a concerning fact many Americans don't know. During 2020's initial uncertainty, seed companies faced unprecedented demand. Back orders for basic seeds extended months. And this wasn't even a complete infrastructure collapse, just panic purchasing. Now imagine that situation with no digital commerce, no supply chains, and no restocking capability. You're holding future food in paper packets, and everyone will want them. What's concerning, organized groups, especially ones attempting to establish post-crisis structures, target seeds for long-term planning. During certain conflicts, control of seed repositories became strategic objectives. And if you think that's impossible domestically, consider why agricultural agencies maintain secured seed vaults. The strategy to protect your seed collection emphasizes obscurity. Never store them in obvious gardening containers. Mine are vacuum-sealed in foil bags labeled as camping meals and stored with outdoor recreation equipment.
Some are even hidden in plastic bags inside old media cases. Yes, obsolete media formats. Nobody's checking dusty stacks of old recordings for survival-grade heirloom vegetable seeds. And here's a tactical tip. Mix in less valuable varieties, packets of common hybrid seeds that won't reproduce reliably. If someone raids your stash, let them take those. Preserve the heirlooms for yourself. In a year-long blackout, you just secured not just sustenance, but leverage. Identification, cash, and tradable paper assets. It's not flashy, it's not tactical, but when infrastructure collapses and systems crash, your ID, cash, and critical documents become survival tools or weapons in the wrong hands. During major disasters, survivors quickly realized that without identification, accessing aid became impossible. Relief organizations, security checkpoints, even temporary local authorities all required identification for supplies, water, and transportation. People were creating false documents, stealing credentials, even committing violence for birth certificates. Now imagine that kind of chaos domestically. In the early hours following major hurricanes, evacuees without identification were turned away from state borders, blocked from boarding transport, or worse, detained as suspected criminals.
But it gets more serious. In prolonged blackouts, you may need identification to access fuel distribution, travel checkpoints, or secured areas. If someone steals your wallet, you're not just losing your license, you're losing access to your identity and giving someone else the opportunity to impersonate you in a resource-starved environment. Add in cash, especially small denominations, and you've got yourself a high-value target. Remember when recent uncertainties first began, people were paying extraordinary amounts for basic protective equipment. Now think blackout. ATMs offline, banks closed, debit cards worthless. Paper cash will be king temporarily, and when that depletes, documents like vehicle titles, land deeds, even medical cards can become bargaining chips in underground markets. So here's what you do. Make physical and digital backups of everything. Store originals in a waterproof, fireproof safe secured properly. Keep copies hidden in 2 other locations, one on your person in a concealed wallet, one in an emergency bag. And encrypt your digital versions on a micro SD card hidden inside a fake battery pack. Don't wait until you're standing in an emergency relief line trying to convince someone you're you. In a blackout, your identity is more than who you are. It's your currency, your access, and your safety net. Water filtration gear and stored water. If you think people panic over food during blackouts, wait until water supplies become uncertain. Within 24 hours of a grid failure, water becomes the most immediate crisis. Why? Because unlike food, you can't skip water. You need it daily. And if you're without it, you've got roughly 3 days before serious health consequences. During various water crises, bottled water vanished within 2 days. People were traveling across state lines just to obtain containers. And that was with functioning roads, phones, and stores. In regions following major hurricanes, locals were drinking from questionable streams, catching rain off corroded rooftops, and digging holes in dry riverbeds hoping for seepage. Federal emergency services sent water, but insufficient amounts. People literally competed for it. That's why water filtration gear becomes a top-tiered target during any blackout. If you've got a quality filter system, a portable straw, even a basic filtration device, guess what? You've just made yourself valuable. Too valuable. Desperate neighbors, roaming groups, and even local civilian response teams will want access. And here's the complication. Most folks only store water in obvious places, the garage, pantry, or basement. But those are the first places raiders search. So how do you protect it? First, decentralize. Use hidden caches, water containers stashed under crawl spaces, sealed jugs behind false backs in closets, even emergency pouches vacuum-sealed inside insulation. Second, never advertise your filter. I keep my primary filter in a modified toolbox that appears to hold power tools. My portable gear is hidden in a zippered pouch labeled camping stakes, and my portable filters tucked inside old board game boxes on a shelf. And finally, build redundancy. boiling capabilities, chemical purifiers, charcoal systems. Because when word gets out you can purify water, your house becomes the watering hole. And in a blackout, watering holes attract predators. Alternative cooking gear and fuel. Let's be completely realistic here. When the grid fails, you're going to get hungry fast. But the bigger question is, how are you going to cook anything? No microwave, no electric stove. Your propane tank might last a week. Your grill, loud, aromatic, and visible for blocks. And guess what that means? You're advertising. In historical siege situations, the sound and smell of cooking was enough to get your location targeted. People used to create smoke containment from damp materials to cook indoors without revealing their position. Fast forward to recent major hurricanes. Nearly 60% of urban residents lost the ability to cook within 48 hours. You think cold canned food is miserable? Try living off it for a month. This is where your camp stoves, alternative cooking devices, portable burners, and solar ovens become essential survival gear, and simultaneously the most desirable items on the black market. During recent winter emergencies, tiny portable stoves were selling for hundreds of dollars online. Fuel canisters became expensive, if you could find them. So how do you protect your ability to cook in silence and secrecy? First, stop keeping your stove in its original packaging. That's a dead giveaway. Wrap it in fabric, stored in a generic storage bin marked old cables.
Second, avoid single-solution approaches. Have multiple systems. A wood-burning device for long-term, no-fuel cooking. A small improvised stove made from bricks in your backyard. And an alcohol stove hidden in your emergency kit. And here's the secret sauce. Fuel is harder to hide than the stove. Store fuel inside fake paint containers. Keep wood pellets in a trash bin labeled litter. Use old canisters with hidden refills inside. In a long blackout, those who cook quietly survive longest. Those who cook publicly become the next target. Now I know what you're thinking. Morale boosters. That's number one. You better believe it, because here's the cold, brutal reality most preparedness-minded people miss until it's too late. Mental collapse kills faster than hunger in long-term blackouts. I've seen it firsthand. People who were physically fine, had food, water, even protection, but their will to continue shattered completely. And the trigger? Isolation, boredom, fear, hopelessness. That's why your morale-boosting supplies, comfort items, games, books, music, small luxuries will not only be the most stolen, but possibly the most dangerous to reveal. In regions experiencing prolonged crises, board games and batteries for radios became black market commodities. In historical conflicts, a single deck of cards could buy you a week's worth of firewood. During major disasters, survivors told researchers that having something, anything to occupy the mind, made the difference between coping and falling apart. You think you're immune because you've got grit? Wait until day 27 when the silence feels like it's pressing in from all sides, and your kids ask for their favorite bedtime story, and you have nothing but darkness to offer them. That's when people break. But here's what most folks don't understand. These items, these comforts, they don't just help you. They make you a target. A battery-powered radio playing music when nobody else has one. A working e-reader with 200 offline books. A single bar of chocolate or a few packs of instant coffee. These aren't luxuries anymore. They're emotional currency. They're hope. And in a hopeless world, hope is dangerous. It breeds obsession, theft, violence. So how do you protect these treasures? First, stop storing them in obvious places. Your old game console, hollow it out. Hide a power bank and headphones inside. That worn paperback you keep in your emergency bag. Wrap it in a fake textbook jacket labeled Calculus Solutions. Even board games can be modified and refilled with emergency morale kits, photos, letters, handwritten notes.
even candy. But more than hiding them, you need to discipline their use. That radio, never play it loud. Those cards, only break them out behind blackout curtains. And never, ever let outsiders see your stash of luxuries. Because in a world that's lost its light, even a tiny spark can draw a deadly crowd. Let me be clear. This isn't about comfort. It's about survival. Mental collapse is real. It turns strong individuals into walking corpses. It convinces good people to give up. And when you go down mentally, you go down all the way. That's why morale, psychological resilience, is not just important, it's number one. Hide it, guard it, ration it. Because in a long blackout, hope is the most valuable thing you can possess.